Is everyone clear? Okay. So yesterday we were doing this question which we could not complete, right? So we'll just look at it one more time and then we'll move forward from there, right? Okay. So students, good evening. How are you? Okay. Let me share the screen with you. Okay. So, right. So students, this is the question that we were discussing. The best way to increase economic welfare is to encourage competition in a market system. Consider whether you agree with this view, right? Now let's do a quick recap of what we did and what you have to do in a question like this, right? So first thing that you have to do is to define what economic welfare is, right? Right. So economic welfare, I said, is basically economic welfare is when, the income levels in an economy are relatively, when the income levels of an economy, when the living standards are high and the income levels are, there's not a lot of disparity between the income levels of citizens in an economy. And that is what shows that there is economic welfare. Now, another thing that is said, that to achieve economic welfare, a country needs to achieve economic efficiency. Why is that so? Because think about this. So if you're not making fully, if you're not making the best use of your resources, right, then that means that you will be wasting your resources, right? You will be wasting your resources and you will not be making full use of your resources, right? So to achieve economic welfare, what you need is economic efficiency, right? You need economic efficiency. And so we said one important, obviously, economic efficiency on its own will not ensure complete welfare. There will be other things as well that will be needed. But the first step in economic welfare is achieving economic efficiency. And then we said that if economic efficiency is important, then how competition in the market will help you achieve, economic efficiency, right? So think about this. This entire 25 marks question concept is simple, that you have to, first of all, understand what the question is asking for, right? After you have understood, right, then you have to make a roadmap of your answer, that how you will go on to answering that, what are the key terms that are involved in it. And only then, after you have done all this planning, you should get down and start writing on that, right? So let's look at this question one more time. Right? So this is the question that we were doing yesterday, students, right? And the question says that the best way to increase economic welfare is to encourage competition in a market system, right? Market system is free market where there is no government intervention. It is the market forces of demand and supply that determine what will be produced, how will be produced, and for whom will be produced, right? Then I said economic welfare is ensuring higher living standards of your country's citizens, which means that everyone has the basic necessities of life. There is not a lot of disparity in the income standards, in the income levels of people, less income disparity, right? So incomes are relatively equal in a country, less income disparity, right? So this being said, right, I said that one important step in achieving welfare is achieving efficiency. Why so? Think about this, right? So when you're making best possible use of your resources, right, and you are producing goods which are most wanted, right, which are most needed, which are most wanted, right, only then you will have more goods available on your disposable to satisfy all the needs of your citizens and so on and so forth, right? Is it making sense, right? So therefore, this is important to achieve this, right? Now, first part of the question will explain how economic efficiency is achieved when competition exists, right? And then in the second part, we will argue that only competition and efficiency is not enough in achieving welfare. Did you guys get this? And the first part will explain how competition and economic efficiency, how through competition, economic efficiency will exist, and due to economic efficiency, welfare will exist, right? But then, in the second part of the question, you also need to give examples and evidence where just economic efficiency is not enough in achieving welfare. There are some other things as well that are needed by the government so to achieve higher welfare, right? Is everyone clear on this? We good? Right, we will, yes. Amna, Laiba, Preet, is everyone clear?
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah, go on.
So when we're arguing, there are other things that we need to do. So
Right.
I explain that we should prevent failures from happening. So we'll explain all the failures.
Right. As many as you can. Yeah. 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 So you are saying explaining market failure. Yeah. True. That's correct. Yeah. You will.
With
You will. So,
graphs,
hmm. I mean, think about this. I'll answer your question. Just give me a minute. I'll answer your question with graph one. I'll answer. Right. Think about this. So let's do this question and then I'll answer your question in the answer in the process. Right. So since the question is not saying with the help of graphs, does the question say with the help of graph? No. So as long as you're defining everything and explaining everything good enough in words, right, and you don't make graphs to illustrate your answer, that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. So you can still get very high marks on this question even without making graphs. But for questions where it says with graphs, right, with the help of graphs or with the help of diagrams to explain this concept, then there are marks reserved for graphs. Then you have to make graphs. Students, are you following me? Right? Easy? Is this simple? Right? So let's go back again, right? So for the first part where we are talking about how with competition there will be more efficiency and due to efficiency there will be welfare. So what you have to explain in this part, what we did in fact in yesterday's class as well. So you will take two scenarios, right? So here you'll take two scenarios for competition, right? One is of perfect competition, which is, as we know, a situation, a market structure where there is complete where there's perfect competition, meaning like most competition exists in this market because there are a lot of firms producing similar products. Consumers have complete information about how much is the price of the products and all these things, right? And firms are price takers. There are no barriers to entry and exit and all these things, right? And then on the other extreme of the spectrum, on the other end of the spectrum, there is this market structure, monopoly, where there's single producer and monopoly, single producer. It has all the market power. It's the only firm producing a product. It has, very high market share and things like that, right? So in this, we do know that economic efficiency doesn't exist, right? And in this, we know that economic efficiency exists, right? Now, one more thing students would have observed is that you are still confused how there will be no allocative efficiency, right? That's what you asked me, or productive efficiency you asked me. You asked me allocative efficiency. So how monopoly doesn't has allocative efficiency. So I'll explain you in a bit, but for now, just stick to this question. I'll explain you towards the end of this question with the help of a graph and show you how in monopoly allocative efficiency doesn't exist. But for that, we'll have to wait. Okay. Now, after you've explained this part, you will say that yes, in perfect competition, you are producing optimal quantities of goods, which means you have allocative efficiency, which is present, and you're also minimizing the cost of producing goods and services, which means productive efficiency is present, right? And therefore you have made this point that when there is more competition in the market, you are not wasting any resources. Goods will be available at the lowest possible price. Consumers are buying goods that they really need, and so on and so forth, right? So that's how you have explained it. On the other hand, monopoly is wasting resources. They're not minimizing their cost. Moreover, they're not producing as many units of the good as much they should or as much the consumers want. Therefore, they are not economically efficient, and therefore economic welfare will be negatively affected. Economic welfare will be low if there are more monopolies. On the other hand, if there are more perfect competition firms in the market, then economic welfare will be high. After you have explained all of this, then right, after you've explained all of this, that how in perfect competition economic welfare will be high and how in monopoly economic welfare will be low, then you need to move on and talk about other things. Now, this is what Amna was talking about, other market failures. Other market failures or other situations where market has failed. So therefore, the government needs to intervene um, you know, to achieve a more desirable situation, right? Now, let me give you some examples, right? Market failure. Other examples of market failure include externalities, right? What are those? I'll explain you. Yeah, Laima. So welfare is achieved through competition. That's the question, right? Students, we are going really slow, by the way, I mean, I do understand that we are kind of recapping it, but the crash course should also mean I've explained you like a couple of times this question. So please, I'll really appreciate that you like stay all attentive and focused, because think about this, just on this, if I show you these are just few questions on economic efficiency. I mean, just imagine, right? So these are all the questions that ideally we should have completed, right? Because it's a big syllabus of to economics, right? So let's keep going a little fast, and I'll really appreciate if I explain one thing. I mean, I don't mind explaining again, but try to, stay more attentive. Okay. Economic welfare, how economic welfare will increase due to competition? That's the question, right? Now, I said economic welfare is higher living standards, right? Better quality of life, less income disparity, right? With competition, what happens? With competition comes in efficiency. What do we mean by that? Efficiency means that you're making best possible use of your resources, you're minimizing the cost of production, and you're producing goods that are most wanted. That is what productive and allocative efficiency says. Yes or no? Then you have to explain how, when there is competition, which is perfect competition, there will be competition and economic efficiency, and therefore people will be getting goods that they need at the lowest possible price. And the country will be making best possible use of its resources. Consumers will be happy, higher living standards, there will be high economic welfare. Confusion about this? On the other hand, monopoly is a market structure where economic welfare will not be higher. Why? Because monopoly waste resources, it's a single firm, it doesn't minimize its costs, so there is no productive efficiency. When cost is high, prices will be higher, consumers will be paying higher prices, they will not like it, right? Moreover, monopolies underproducing, they produce at the point of profit maximization, they don't produce at the point which is allocatively efficient, right? So again, consumers are not getting the goods that they want because monopoly is underproducing, right? To maximize their profit, they're not producing according to the wishes or the needs of the society. Yes or no? Now, is this everything clear? Right? After you have done all this discussion, then you have to talk about that this will not be enough for welfare. There are other things that the government needs to take care of. What are those other cases of market failure? What is market failure? When market fails to achieve efficiency, that is a case of market failure, right? Now, the other case of market failure includes externalities, right? What is an externality? Externality is when someone is doing one thing and another party, the third party, is being affected out of that, right? Demerit goods, exactly, very nice, right? So demerit goods are overconsumed, right? Alcohol, cigarettes, and things like that, right? So I'll explain each one of these one by one, right? Demerit goods, then merit goods are underconsumed. So that's also kind of a failure in the market. Then no provision of public goods, right? Private sector doesn't provide public goods. What are public goods? Non-excludable and non-rivalry, right? Roads, parks, street lights, defense. No provision of, provision means supply. No provision of public goods, right? And so on and so forth, right? Okay, now let's discuss one by one. So what is externality? Externality is where one person is doing something or a group of individuals is doing something and other people are being affected out of it. Why? Because it's causing a harmful effect to them, right? Now, if you take a simple example of air pollution, right? So let's say there's a factory that's producing any product. I mean, could be clothes factory, could be car producing company, could be anything, right? So you have price and cost on the y-axis, you have output on the x-axis, right? So what you have to do on an externality, we are thinking of negative externality. What is negative externality? A negative effect on the third party, right? So downward sloping will be your downward sloping will be your marginal private cost, right? Marginal private benefit, right? So graph, again, let me recap what I said about the graph. If the question says with the help of a graph, then there are marks reserved for graphs. If it doesn't say so, then it's your choice whether you want to make the graph or not. If you can explain everything in words and you explain it well, and that's correct, the examiner likes the explanation, so you'll still get higher score. Easy, you good on this? Right? Exactly, very nice. And the upward sloping will be your marginal private cost, right? So always remember, cost is always upward sloping in the externality graph and otherwise as well, right? And the benefit would be downward sloping, right? So marginal private benefit is downward sloping, marginal private cost is upward sloping. Good on this? Wherever the two intersect, students, wherever the two intersect, that is the quantity that the market will consume. This is the quantity that the market will consume, meaning people like you and me will consume, because I mean, we are only concerned about our own benefits and our own cost, right? We are not concerned about the society. That's how we decide, right? We don't care how much, if our car use causes fumes in the environment, which it does. We don't really care about it, right? We still use our private cars and so on, right? So where the private benefit, marginal private benefit, and marginal private cost intersect, that is the quantity that the market consumes, right? Easy, good. Okay. Now to the left of this will lie what? Just a second. Now to the left of this, students, will lie your marginal social cost. Marginal social cost. Now you must be thinking that why is social cost higher than private cost? Marginal, right? So your marginal social cost is higher than your private cost. Why? Let me answer this for you. Now, social cost is made up of private cost plus external cost, right? So when there is pollution taking place, right? So when there is pollution taking place in the society, right? So that means that your social cost will be higher than your private cost. Private cost just means the cost of producing that product. Private cost only means the cost of producing that product. Yes or no? Is this simple? Right? But in the process of producing that product, that could be car, that could be clothes, that could be anything, right? If there is also pollution, air pollution, right? Because we do know that factories emit smoke, and that is one major reason of global warming and all that stuff, right? So with pollution, your marginal social cost will be higher than your marginal private cost, right? Now, where the social benefit and social cost are equal. So this graph is also showing you, I have written what? Slash private benefit slash social benefit, right? Now, where your social benefit is equals to your social cost, that is the point, where the society should consume. That's the point where society should consume. Yes or no? Students, are you following me? That's the point where society should consume. So this is QS. Easy? Okay. Now, what will the government do to bring consumption down from QM to QS? Because think about this, market is consuming more, market is consuming at the point QM, whereas society should have consumed QS, right? So market is over consuming, so you need to bring it down to QS. What will you do? The government will impose taxes. The government will put taxes on the business operations, right? And that will increase the cost of production, right? And that will cause this marginal private cost to shift leftwards to marginal social cost. Easy? We good on this? So that is how you show the graph of negative externality. But again, I mean, we will be doing these graphs again and again and again in our revision classes. But so don't worry if you still do not have a lot of concept and idea of how these different graphs are made, right? Easy? Any confusion so far? Right? So externality
Could you
is,
please
yes.
show deadweight
Yeah.
loss in this graph?
So, okay, so deadweight loss is shown in any graph. Okay, got it. So deadweight loss is shown in any graph when the government imposes taxes, right? Now think about this. Previously, this was your consumption. Have a look at this, right? Can you see this? Now the new level of consumption becomes this. Easy? Now this triangle that's formed between the new and the old quantity. So this was your original quantity. This is your new quantity, right? So the triangle that is formed between the new and the old quantity, right? Which is this, right? Which is this, right? This is your deadweight loss, right? So deadweight loss basically means loss of economic output due to government intervention, which reduces the output in the market. And this area is your deadweight loss, right? This triangle between the new quantity. So this triangle, easy.
Thank you.
This is your, right? Okay. So students, are we good on this? Now, why is negative externality a problem? Why is externality a problem? Because in negative externality, first of all, right, there is overconsumption, right? There was overconsumption taking place, right? And the government had to control that through imposition of taxes. Why? Because someone else was being affected. So just imagine in your own country, right? In our countries, if there are factories which are causing air pollution, and we are breathing in that polluted air and all that stuff, right? So would we expect our living standards to be very high? Would we have very high economic welfare? Obviously no. So who has to take care of it? Government has to take care of it. Now, can you see the link between this, what we have discussed, and the question that we were discussing? Got it, right? So that's how you need to answer it. Similarly, in positive externality, very good. In positive externality, there is underconsumption, right? So you underconsume something. What is positive externality? Perfect example that I've been giving to my students since the outbreak of COVID, right? So getting a COVID shot is basically a positive externality. You are staying safe, but at the same time, you're also keeping your family members and your friends safe, because you don't catch COVID or you don't carry COVID, then your chances of transferring this disease to your friends or family are also lower. Yes or no? Vaccination, exactly. So COVID vaccination is a case of positive externality, right? Now, a lot of people underestimate the benefits and they do not get themselves, haven't gotten themselves vaccinated and so on, right? So when this happens, what will the government do? Now let's look at this graph as well, right? So when this happens, government will encourage them to get uh, COVID vaccination, right? Now let's look at this one graph one more time, Laiva. Have a look at this, right? So that we get absolutely clear on how this will look like, right? Okay. Now you have price and cost on the y-axis and you have output on the x-axis. Now we are making the graph. Previously, we made the graph for negative externality. Now we are making the graph for positive externality. Easy, right? Okay. Now for positive externality, again, the first thing that you will do is to mention private cost and private benefit, right? So you will have a look at this. So normal, simple, down sloping demand curve sort of a thing, and normal upward sloping supply curve sort of a thing, right? So this upward sloping is marginal. This upward sloping is your marginal private cost, as I showed you in the last graph as well. And this downward sloping is your marginal private benefit, which is downward sloping. Easy? Okay. Now, wherever the two are intersecting, you put a dot over here and you bring this dotted line down and you connect it to the x-axis and you label it as QM, which shows you how much is the market consuming, how much the market is consuming, right? Then the next thing that you have to do is to imagine what happens in a positive externality. I get I get a COVID vaccination, then I stay safe, but at the same time, my family and my friends are also staying safe, right? So I'm giving someone else a benefit. So just like social cost is made up of private cost and external cost, similarly, social benefit, which is the total benefit to a society of a decision or an action, is made up of private benefit plus external benefit, right? So private benefit, right? My benefit of getting COVID vaccination plus the benefit that other people around me get by me being vaccinated, right? Right? Is this getting this? Right? So when you add external benefit to private benefit, your social benefit will be higher, right? So when there is external benefit of any decision, your social benefit will be higher. Easy. Right. Q stands for quantity. Yeah. Q stands for quantity, right? So QM is only referring to how much the market will consume. Now we do know that this product has a positive externality, right? So the social benefit will be higher. Marginal social benefit will be higher than private benefit. SB, social benefit, is higher than private benefit, right? So you put a dot over there. Students, and then you bring a dotted line down to the x-axis and you label it as QS, which is socially desirable. Now, in this case, you are under consuming, as I did tell you before the graph, and before making the graph even, that in case of positive externality, people under consume. They don't fully realize the benefit, right? And they under consume, and less people have gotten themselves vaccinated, even though everyone should have had, right? Now there is underconsumption of the good. So what will what will the government do? Government will provide incentives to people to get themselves vaccinated. How so? By either providing subsidies. So when you provide subsidies, what happens? So when subsidies are provided, your cost of production decreases, and therefore your supply curve will shift rightwards like this to S1, right? Now this new supply curve is intersecting with, this new supply curve is intersecting with your marginal private benefit at this point, right? And you can see that your consumption will increase from QM to QS. So that's one way of going around about this. Or another way of going about this is to create awareness, to make people realize and understand that how important is this COVID vaccination. Confusions? Anything not clear?
Sir,
Yeah.
would the positive externality graph have the movement of marginal social cost?
Yeah. Sorry,
The
repeat.
right?
It's to the right, because think about this, anything that's higher, right? So when a demand, so think of a demand thing, right? So the social benefit is higher than private benefit because of the fact that it also includes external benefit. It also
Correct.
includes, is this making sense, right? So this is the protection that I get, right? Due to COVID, right? From COVID, right? And other people who are protected because of the fact that I am vaccinated, right? Family, friends, right? So that benefit is known as external benefit, right? So when I add, external benefit to my private benefit, therefore my social benefit becomes higher than my private benefit. That's how it happens. Is it making sense?
Right. Sir, can I also draw it like marginal
Yeah.
marginal cost I can shift it towards the right and not have any shift in marginal private benefit curve?
Oh, okay. I got it. So basically what you're talking about, right, Amna? So in that case, you are talking about, and listen to this carefully, you are talking about production externality, production positive externality. And what I gave you the example of was
Was consumption.
consumption externality. Yeah, you can also do that. Easy. You can do that. So in that case, your marginal social cost would be to the right of marginal private cost, like over here, right? That's what you meant?
G, sir, G.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay. Is it really clear, students? Are we good on this, right? So far we have talked about, right, externalities, right? Then we have talked about, let's come to, this is a relatively easier case, merit and demerit goods, right? Now, in the case of merit and demerit goods, what happened, right? So merit good is simply anything that's harmful for consumers, but they do not fully realize the harmful benefits, and therefore they overconsume it, right? So cigarettes are an ideal example of demerit goods, alcohol and things like that, right? Now what government needs to do is to government make rules and regulations around it, right? Like underage smoking and drinking is prohibited, drunk driving is prohibited, right? And smoking in closed areas is prohibited, and so on and so forth, right? So this is how government tries to restrict use of demerit goods, and therefore in the process, what's happening? Always connect whatever you are writing in the essay questions. Do remember that what question you are addressing with that, right? So keep the question always in the main part, right? The focus of whatever you are writing, right? So when government is controlling, a quick recap, when government is controlling all these market failures, in the process, government is ensuring higher welfare, right? In government is ensuring higher welfare, right? Similarly, then there are merit goods which people do not fully realize the benefit for, and therefore they underconsume, right? Example includes education, healthcare, right? And so on, right? Now, what's the solution for this? Government provides incentives again. So that's why public hospitals exist across the globe. Public schools exist. Why? Because government knows that there are some people who can't afford private education, private healthcare, and therefore government needs to provide them a substitute which is cheaper and affordable, and therefore this exists, right? Making sense, right? Then another case of market failure is no provision of public goods. Now, what do we mean by no provision of? Don't worry, I'll send you a new link. No provision of public goods mean that private sector never produces public goods. You know what public goods are, right? So if you have forgotten, because you must have studied this in your AS economics, right? I'll give you a quick recap, right? So public goods are non-excludable and non-rivalry, right? Meaning that you can't exclude anyone from using a good, which is a public good, right? And the benefit to everyone is more or less the same. The benefit to everyone of a public good is more or less the same. Examples include, you know, parks, street lights, defense, right? National defense and all these things, right? So these are the two characteristics that exist for public goods. Non-excludable, you can't exclude. Can you stop anyone from stepping on the road? No, because everyone in your country owns that road, right? Non-excludable, non-rivalry. Non-rivalry means that the benefit doesn't diminish. The benefit that people are getting from the use of a product doesn't decrease if more people start using that product, right? So example is, let's say multiple people use road at the same time and everyone is getting more or less the same benefit and so on, right? So non-rivalry, benefit doesn't diminish if more people start using the good, right? So since it's not profitable, right? Providing public goods is not profitable for public, sorry, what I'm saying. Providing public goods is not profitable for private sector. That's why they will never do that. So who has to provide these public goods? Because these are important. Roads are important, right? Parks are important. Street lights are important. Defense is important, right? So who provides public good? Public sector, right? The government, right? Since supply of public goods is not profitable for private sector, right? Easy. Now, after this, let me recap everything. Private, not profitable for private sector. So therefore, government has to provide these products. It has to provide these goods, right? Okay. Now, one last recap of the question, right? So that you completely understand how this essay question, which was for 25 marks, you were supposed to answer, right? The best way to increase economic welfare is to encourage competition in a market system. Okay. Now, how will you frame it? You will start off by defining what welfare is. Welfare simply means welfare, well-being, well-being. What's well-being? Well-being is higher living standards, better quality of life. So when a country becomes developed, it's welfare, right? It has more welfare, right? Higher living standards, higher incomes, more affordability of goods and services and all that, right? And what is competition? Competition just means more firm operating in the market. There's more competition. They will provide better prices to their customers. There will be better quality. There will be more innovation. Whenever there is competition, all these benefits happen. Okay. After we've explained these things, then you come to the part where due to competition, there will be efficiency, and due to efficiency, there will be welfare. I repeat. So in the first half of the question, you were supposed to comment on how due to more competition, there will be efficiency, right? Right? Economic efficiency, productive and allocative. And due to that, there will be welfare, right? I'll explain you again. And then in the second half of the question, you have to tell that not with competition alone, right? Only with competition alone, there can't be the government can't ensure economic welfare. There are some other things as well that the government needs to take care of. And what are those other things? I did tell you that these other market failure cases that the government needs to control. Like there should be, if there are externalities, government needs to control that. If there is case of merit demerit goods, government need to control that. Private sector not produces public goods, so the government has to produce that, right? And then after you have written all these things, then you will conclude that yes, due to competition, economic welfare does increase. Listen to this. Due to competition, economic welfare does increase, this is the conclusion. But there are some other things as well that the government needs to take control of and to take care of, which are cases of market failure, which needs to be controlled. So that's how you were supposed to write this right answer to this question. Easy? Is everything clear? Right? So if everything is clear, now we can move to the next question. Right? We good? Any
So
final
can I
thoughts, comments? Yeah.
this question?
Yeah. Sorry. Sorry, go on.
Can I send you an answer to this question by tomorrow?
Yeah, sure. Just make sure when you're taking the pictures, so those are clear enough. And I'll be sharing my email address on the WhatsApp group, right? So just email me all the pictures, right? That's where it's easier, it's organized, and I check my email regularly. In fact, a couple of times in a day, so I'll give you feedback on that. Got it? Okay, now we are moving to the next question, students, right? Right. Okay, now let's choose relatively okay, just a second. Okay, now this is kind of a similar question to what we just discussed, right? So in this, it should take us less time, and I'll give you an overview of how you need to answer this. So I'm talking about question 6, students. Discuss the assertion that the market system is not able to allocate resources efficiently, right? Now, when we discuss this question, right, we will come to that. Right, we will definitely do that. But right now, the reason for choosing this question is that I can show you how questions are kind of similar in terms of what you need to in terms of what you need to write, but the wordings of questions could be very different, right? Now, the question says, discuss the assertion that the market system is not able to allocate resources efficiently, right? Now, there are two things that the question is asking you to discuss the relationship of market system and allocation and resource efficient use of resources, right? Okay, now think about this. Now, what is market system, right? So we already know market system is free market, where it's the market forces of demand and supply that decide what to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce. There is no government intervention or very minimal government intervention, right? So that's what the market system is, right? Then the question says allocate resources efficiently, right? So it's talking about economic efficiency and primarily about allocative efficiency, because we know in economic efficiency, there are two components, productive and allocative, and the allocative efficiency part is the one that talks about allocation of resources. What do we mean when we say allocation? It means what goods to produce and what goods not to produce, like how to spend your resources on different products, right? That's what allocation of resources mean. Is this making sense, right? So if you are overproducing something, that will again be misallocation of resources. If you're underproducing something, that will again be, inappropriate allocation of resources, right? So what quantities of goods should be produced and what goods should be produced, right? So these two questions are what goods to be produced, goods to be produced, and how much quantities of these goods to be produced is part of allocative efficiency. Students, are you following me? What quantities of these goods to be produced, right? These are part of allocative efficiency, right? Okay, I think the class is about to end, so I'm just ending the class. Just join the class with the same link, right? Okay, continue. No, Preet, I think it will be like join for now. I'll take 10-15 minutes, because I mean we can't have too many smaller sessions. We also should have some longer sessions. Join right now. Can other student join? Amna, Laiba? So I mean every day committing is like, okay, I'll see if I can then make time tomorrow. Okay. Okay. So yeah, do check with me tomorrow then. right? Okay, take care then. Okay, take